Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier doing a Mike's Instant Movie Review. So it's 1:12 a.m. This is now it's Friday. Happy Friday, June 21st, 2024. So last night was Thursday, and there was a screening and an IMAX, a couple of IMAX theaters here in Florida, Jacksonville and Orange Park. Jacksonville was actually sold out for this event. But Orange Park was not. So I went to Orange Park and I saw for the first time Midsommar. And I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced, if it's just Midsummer, but it's kind of spelled Midsommar. And now, full disclosure, folks, I had never seen this film. I remembered when this film came out, I thought it was getting kind of mixed to poor reviews by my memory. And I'm not sure why, because I found this to be a pretty intense horror film. And this kind of reminds me of an experience earlier this year when I saw Heredity, another horror film that I hadn't seen, and I saw it for the first time in the big IMAX screen. Is that another A24 film? I think it probably is. But similarly, when I saw Hereditary, I was like, man, I can't believe I missed this one because this was such a good horror film, and I pretty much feel the same way here about Midsommar. By the way, I am live. If you happen to be catching this, 1:14 a.m. East Coast time, June 21st, you can comment. You might have to go to the actual YouTube channel, One Mike Messier, to comment. If you're commenting from Facebook or Twitter, I probably won't see it unless you hop on over to YouTube and comment in the chat. Okay, so let's get on with it. First off, if you haven't seen this movie, and I have a feeling that probably a lot of you have seen this movie originally in 2019 or saw it on DVD or streaming afterwards, and did you go see the director's cut? Was that something that you wanted to see? Did you go see it tonight? I think it was a one night only type of deal. If you saw it, you can leave a comment or not. But how much different was this director's cut than the original cut? Well, I don't know because I didn't see the original cut. So my review here is strictly based on what I saw tonight. Should you see it? If you haven't seen it, yeah, this is a good one. For the horror fans, definitely want to see this one. This does have a story. It's not just a gore fest. For people that like movies, with intense character development, unique situations, things you can relate to as far as human relationships, that's all in this movie. Um, there is, violence, mature content, psychological stuff. Probably not a movie you want to take kids. I would say definitely kids under 13 should not go to this, and even older than that, that's really up to the parents, but I mean, this is an intense film. So I am going to start saying some spoilers now. So if you intend on seeing this movie, you might want to go see it and then come back and watch my review. So what's this story all about? Well, first we meet these college kids, and there's a couple. Now, the first thing I recognize is that I know who Florence Pugh is. She was in Oppenheimer. She played like the sexy girlfriend in Oppenheimer. I first saw Florence Pugh as Soraya or Paige in the wrestling movie, Wrestling with My Family. She played the wrestler Paige. So that's how I got introduced to Florence Pugh. I had never seen Midsommar, and I'm kind of guessing that this is kind of what made her a star. Like, this is what put her on the map. For me, I just didn't know that. I thought she was on some television show, some Netflix show that I didn't watch. But I remember seeing her in Wrestling with My Family. And the other characters, in the 5 years since this movie has come and gone from the theaters, I don't know if the boyfriend character, actor Jack Rayner, or the guy that played their host, Pele, Wilhelm Logren, I don't know if he's become a big deal. William Jackson Harper is 4,000 something on the star meter. He played Josh. Will Poulter, I did recognize from We're the Millers because he's like this young guy. I guess he's like 22 now. but he does kind of have this face for comedy. The kid that played Mark, because I do remember in the We Are the Millers that he played the son that was watching, I guess his stepmother Jennifer Aniston's strip or whatever it was. Beyond that, I really didn't recognize a whole lot of actors. I'm looking through the listing. It says Archie Matakewe played Simon, and I guess he was the lead guy in Gran Turismo, which was a movie that I did see, and I did like that one. So he's done something for himself, and so on and so forth. So we meet these. This is. I'm going to tell you some of the things I liked about this movie. What I did like about it a lot was that it set the tone for the movie of horror. That our lead central character here, played by Florence Hugh, Danny, she's going through some intense shit before we even get to the horror. And basically, she's having a panic attack. We initially think it's just like typical young woman, college girl shenanigans. She's worried about her boyfriend hating her. She calls her female friend for reassurance about her boyfriend. Her boyfriend, we see him with his buddies, and it seems like he's kind of been pondering whether or not to break up with this girlfriend for a year or so, and he's just been on the fence, as one of his friends say. And it seems like he doesn't really want to be with her, but at the same time, he's either too lazy to break up with her, or he's fearful that she'll have a panic attack and maybe there's never a good time to break up with her. He's kind of playing that game. Maybe he's one of these people that wants to be pursued, and he likes the fact that she's like really into him, and even if he's not that into her, he likes that power dynamic. He likes having that control over her. It's a pretty dysfunctional yet pretty typical college relationship. And for her part, Danny's part, she's really concerned about her sister. And I thought this was a really interesting thing with this movie. The whole thing with the sister, being bipolar, and basically, I guess what we see is that the sister has gassed both herself to death and her parents to death, meaning Danny's parents as well. So the kind of opening 10 or 15 minutes of this movie, we have like a mini horror film of, the sister has killed herself and her parents, and now Danny is left alone in the world. She has no parents, she has no sibling, and I guess we kind of have to pick up the pieces, because I don't know if this is just in the director's cut or whatever, but they kind of hop along things pretty quickly. But we're able to figure out that maybe out of guilt or sadness, the boyfriend has stuck with her through this time. I guess he's a nice enough guy that he's not going to break up with her when she's going through this trauma and tragedy of her whole family being deceased, a murder suicide. He's not going to dump her now, so at least he's that type of guy. And in the meantime, we've discovered that this was a pretty interesting quick cut. Like, we go from the night of the murder suicide of Danny's family. Then she goes to sleep. She cries herself to sleep. The boyfriend Christian is there with her. Interesting name, by the way, for his character. I'll get into that. He kind of rocks her to sleep. The next day they wake up, and he's like, "Hey, I'm just going to go to this party for 45 minutes." Because, it seems like this guy is just kind of an average Chad. He's just kind of an average guy who just, he just wants to be a dude and just hang out with his friends and just go out with an easy, regular girl without all these problems, right? So he's got one foot out the door the whole time he's with this girl. And she's like, "Hey, I'll go to the party with you." And he's like, "Really?" But he takes her to the party, and that's where our big catalyst moment occurs, where it's revealed that Christian's buddies, and this is where we meet Mark Pele, who's the guy from Switzerland, I guess is where the country is. North Sweden, not Switzerland. And Josh, they're all going to go to Sweden for the summer for I think they said a month and a half. And this is all news to Danny, the girlfriend. She didn't know about this trip, or she didn't know that it was a done deal. And we see this several times with the Christian character, the boyfriend. He's always kind of caught between his buddies and his girl. And it seems like his real heart, where he really wants to, lay his loyalty, is with his dudes, with his guys. Because he does, it's pretty clear to the audience that he wants to break up with her. And he's really just going through the motions with her. And she is very cute, very pretty. So of course he's going to stick around and still have sex with her when he can, but his heart's not really into it, and so on and so forth. And like I said, this type of thing happens a lot with people in their teens and 20s and all the way to death, really. People just hang out with people or date people that they've really lost interest in, but there's nothing better to do or no one better to do. Haha. So moving forth, she basically, I wouldn't say she invites herself, but she has like this whole nervous attack on him because he didn't tell her about the trip. And he tries to play it off like, well, I was going to invite you to the trip, but you ruined the surprise. So we see that this is a trait of this guy that's going to come back later. Whenever he kind of fails at boyfriend 101, later on he'll forget her birthday. He tries to cover his tracks and say it was going to be a surprise. I didn't forget, So now he's going to invite her to go to Sweden, and when he tells this to his boys, his fellas, Mark and Josh are not too excited about it. They see her as dead weight. They see her as kind of ruining the fun. But the host guy, Wilhelm Blagren, the actor who was playing Pele has a thing for her, which is pretty obvious the way that he's looking at her the whole time. He's got a real hard on for this his buddy's girl, my best friend's girl type of thing. He's got a real thing for her, and we'll find out why. Another real interesting thing is that Pele tells her that his parents are dead too. They died in a fire, which we can let our imaginations figure what happened to Pele's parents. She runs off to the bathroom, and then boom, we're in the airplane of them all flying to Switzerland. So the interesting thing here is, with that cut especially, there was a couple of times in this movie where time is sped up. Like the audience knows that they're all going to have to go to the airport. They're all going to have to buy tickets. And so they don't have to go through the painful process of showing that. They don't even go through the painful process of showing her, debating whether or not she wants to go on this trip. We just see her, now she's on the trip, for better or for worse. We see that she and the friend Mark character, who's pretty crude, he's pretty just like a typical college guy looking to get laid and so forth. They don't get along very well. There was a lot of good things in this movie where just the facial expressions of the characters, or the way that the characters interacted with each other, we knew what they were thinking. We, being the audience, knew what they were thinking without the dialogue having to spell it out. And that's good direction and good acting, and essentially also at the beginning of it is good screenwriting. And that is a thing that I struggle with as a screenwriter sometimes. Is I'm afraid that if I were to write a screenplay, or when I do write a screenplay, if someone directs the movie besides me, they're not going to catch all my little nuances, and this is how the actor should play this. As a screenwriter, you're kind of in a vulnerable position because you're presenting this script, and you're not supposed to have what they call on-the-nose dialogue, which basically, is like, oh, you're ugly, or the house is smelly. Like, you're supposed to have some nuance in your dialogue, but at times you don't, at least I don't, want to risk the actors not understanding things. So sometimes it's a temptation to overwrite stuff. But whoever wrote this script and whoever directed it, I don't know if it's the same person or not off the top of my head, but they did do a nice job. I'll look up the crew real quick. I'd like to do these, as you might know. I typically do these reviews from the comfort of my own car right after the movie, but this time I decided to do this live interactive version. So Ari Aster was the writer and the director. Oh God, here you fucking go. So this is the same guy that did Hereditary. Now, what did you see at the beginning? If you saw the beginning of this review, I was just saying that this movie reminded me of Hereditary. And it's the same writer and director. Now, it's funny because I knew that they were both A24 films, And when I was watching this movie in live time, I did feel like the ending was very similar to Hereditary. If you've seen both movies, you know what I'm talking about. So like I said, folks, this is the first time I saw this movie. I did not realize that this Ari Aster guy is it a he, is it a she, is this person like the new top dog in horror films or whatever the fuck? But I guess I have to give him credit because he's making some good movies. He also made, I just looked up his IMDb, Beau is Afraid, which I did see that movie in the theater. I like that movie. Dream Scenario, I did not see that. This guy looks like he's about 45 years old. No, it says he's 37 years old. Good for him. July 15th, 1986. So this guy's got a pretty goddamn good career going for him. I'll say that. So at least he's made two classic films, and I'd probably say that Beau is Afraid, which I did see, that was a pretty good one too. That had Joaquin Phoenix in it. Okay, so now that I've romanced this guy long enough, let's go back to our review here. Other things that I liked about this movie, first of all, there's nothing more annoying than a crying baby. And there's several scenes where the characters are all put in this bunk, like this giant barn, and like it looks like 10 or 15 people are sleeping in the same barn with like cots. And the whole night they're sleeping, I don't remember seeing the baby, but there's some baby crying all night, and to the point where Danny has to take a sleeping pill to sleep. But there's some real annoying stuff here, like things that are kind of horrible, like horrifying. Crying babies, relationships that you don't know if you're coming or going. For me, maybe not for you, traveling to other countries, it's like something I don't even want to do. Like people get excited, oh, we're going to Europe. I don't want to fucking go to Europe because I don't trust that I'll come back in one piece. You know, people that get all excited about going to some foreign country and hey, look, if I was in Europe, I wouldn't want to come to the USA either. You know what I mean? It's just I don't trust other countries' laws and legalities and what you can do here, what you can have on you here, you can't have there, or customs is going to screw you, or a bunch of people are speaking a language that you don't speak or I don't speak. So I pretty much stick to the good old US of A. And, you know, if I was a Frenchman, like I am French ethnicity, but if I was born in France, I'd stay in France. You know what I mean? Like I'm just going to stay in my home country where at least I have a shot of some type of freedom or some type of help if there's something going on. But these people go to fucking Sweden or Switzerland, wherever the fuck they go, and that's I don't do that. I don't go to Sweden. So that's the first thing. I don't go to these weird countries. You know what I mean? I stay in my own weird country. So the other thing that I have a fear of or I don't like is I don't like to go in someone else's vehicle. I don't like to be anywhere where I can't leave. Like if I'm someplace and I don't want to be there, I have to have my vehicle and my keys and enough gas in the car to get the fuck home. That's just me. Like I don't want to trust anyone else. I'm not putting my faith into your hands. I did that enough in my life. I'm not going to do that now. So if I go somewhere, 99 times out of 100, I'm driving myself. And if other people want to go with me, maybe. But I don't trust other people. And that's where our Danny and the other characters get into trouble, is they trust this weirdo, Pele, with their lives, you know? And then another fear, I think that's a good founded fear, is like, you know, other cultures, cultural differences, cults, you know what I mean? And that's what these poor people find out. Now, as far as the pagan stuff, like I said, folks, I'm coming in real cold on this. I don't know if this movie has like spawned debate or if there's like pagan people that didn't like this movie because they felt like this movie was showing a dark side of paganism or whatever the fuck. Or I don't know if Swedish people didn't like this movie, but I'm betting there's like a whole conversation about this film that I've missed out on. As far as like some of these religious ceremonies and so forth and these customs, because once again, spoilers, but we're seeing that they make a joke about it. What happens when you turn 72? And Pele tells us that when the people in this cult turn 72, they kill themselves. So it's intense, and we see that. We see it coming. We as the audience, we know that we're seeing a horror film. So at the point we get to, we've only seen Danny's family get killed, but we know that there's more to it than that. So we're going to see these suicides, which were really quite intense. And I found myself watching, like sometimes, like for instance, in this movie, they do a thing where they cut the hands of the old people before they kill themselves. So I kind of like close my eyes because, as I've told you in my other horror film reviews, cutting of hands and feet, I can't watch that. I'll watch a gunshot to the chest or the abdomen or someone getting stabbed or a slit throat. It's fine, but don't show me a foot or a hand getting like a finger breaking I hate that stuff. So anyway, but when first the old lady jumps to her death, and like the way that they did the graphic makeup of her head getting bonked in, smashed in, squished in was pretty impressive. And then the poor old guy, the old timer, he jumps, but then he doesn't hit his head first. He like gets what do you call that? A compound fracture of the leg where your leg's all fucked up, but he's still alive. And they come over with this giant mallet and smash his head in. So at this point, most people would be looking for the door. And there is this other couple, the actor guy from that other movie, the car racing movie. He wants to take off, him and his girl. But then we kind of find, and now we're getting to maybe my fatal flaw in this whole film. I'll get to it in a second. But we see that the characters that try to leave right away, like the other Americans, or I think they were actually a British couple, they're trying to leave. And we're discovering that when they try to leave, they're basically getting killed. So that's the character of Simon, and I guess it was Connie, played by Ella Torchia, was the girlfriend. So they're trying to leave, but we find out that they're getting killed. And here's my little complaint about this movie, as much as I liked it. I think with a really good horror film, there has to be some... Well, it doesn't have to be, but there can be some opportunities for the main characters to get free. And one thing that I like as a horror film fan, I think other people do too, if they know it or not, you want to see like this character could have escaped, but they were too prideful, or they were too loyal to their friends, or they were too stupid, and they didn't escape. But in this one, what we're learning is once they're there at the compound or the Swedish cult place, once they're there, they're not getting out. So there's really, no one here gets out alive type of deal. So that's where we see the real terror from Florence Pugh, her character of Danny, because she's kind of, and her character has been like this the whole movie, which I thought was very good and consistent. Like she's always kind of been the victim. She's been the victim of her sister's bipolar. She's the victim when her whole family's dead. She's the victim of this relationship with Christian, the boyfriend, that he doesn't really love her, but he's not man enough to break up with her and let her go. So she's always kind of in the back seat. And as bizarre as it is, and this is probably where the ambiguity of this movie comes in, and probably I'm guessing that for 5 years people have been debating this, I just haven't been part of the debate, is she happy at the end of the movie? Because at least with this director's cut, we kind of end with her, that headpiece, she's the May Queen, I think they called it, and she's smiling. Well, is she smiling because she's happy that she just had her, pseudo boyfriend killed? Is she happy because I don't know if he was going to be permanently katanified, like is he ever going to be able to move his arms and legs and stuff, and his neck? I mean, because basically at jumping ahead to the end of the film, her boyfriend's been poisoned so that he can't move his body, and they put him in this bear suit. And she has the choice. She gets the Sophie's choice of which person dies. It's either one of the normal, so the regular members of the cult, the family, as they called it, or one of the visitors, and she basically chooses that the boyfriend that she came with is going to die. Now, maybe she's thinking it's a mercy killing because they're going to torture him anyway, or maybe he's never going to get his body functions back, so she might as well kill him. Or is she killing him out of spite? And here's the other thing that I wasn't clear on. At the end of the movie, we see her, and she's like the May Queen type of deal, and she's got this very elaborate costume. The costume is cloaking her body. We do see her face, but I was curious, has her body somehow been attacked? Like have they screwed her up and we just don't see it because she's covered in this regalia, this giant outfit? And it wasn't clear to me if she still had control of her limbs, her body, or had she been brutalized and she could still speak and still move her face, but her body was maimed. I couldn't tell at the end. So I think what the point of the movie is, once she's been through hell with all this craziness, has she accepted her fate to be part of the family? As horrific as some of their rituals are, now she knows when she's going to die. She's going to die at age 72, like everybody else. But does she accept this? Does she want to be here, or does she just want to live? And like maybe she's thinking, well, I'll survive this nightmare, and when they're not looking, I'll take the truck into town and get the fuck out of here. So I mean, she's the one of all the people that are on this trip. All her college friends, and they're not really even her friends, but only one has survived, and that's the host guy. But boyfriend Bobby there, Christian, and it is interesting that they named him Christian because obviously they're in a religious situation where it's anything but Christian, Christianity. So he's there. He hasn't really fought for them to leave. He's got. I did like the debate that he had with Mark, not Mark, with Josh, because Josh takes his anthropology very seriously, and I did like in the director's cut at least, Josh has like this 1 minute monologue where he basically is like, I'm the real academic, you're just sniffing my jock. He's saying that to Christian, his pal, and they're arguing about who gets to do the thesis, the master's thesis on this cult. So I thought that I kind of like that when this is not quite an ensemble movie. I wouldn't call it that, but I'd say that this is somewhere between a movie with central characters that dominate. It's not to that extreme, and it's not to the ensemble extreme. It's somewhere in the middle, where mostly it's Danny and Christian's movie, mostly Danny, and then Christian as the 1B, the boyfriend. But then the supporting characters of Pele, Josh, and Mark, they all have like some good character development as well. So I mean, I really like this whole movie. As like I said, the only thing that could have, if I had to fiddle fuck with the script, the only thing would be Danny never really has an opportunity to escape that she either doesn't take or she screws up. At least with this director's cut, I haven't seen the original cut. So as far as I can remember, once she's there, she's done. Like she's either going to be part of the family, which is what happens, or she's going to get killed. What else? The inbred character, I mean, that was pretty intense. And the inbred character is the Oracle. And when this young girl, she's 15, but she is like registered, I guess, to have sex, and so she's so the Christian guy decides he'll take the one night opportunity because they are aware that they can't inbreed forever in their little cult, that they have to get some new blood into the blood pool, which is pretty smart for a cult because a lot of cults are kind of dumb. So I mean, for this cult to realize, for them to continue to exist, they have to bring in outsiders to impregnate some of their women so that they don't all fuck each other's cousins. So they're smart enough to get her in there, and gee whiz. So but yeah, that whole sex scene towards the end, if you saw the director's cut, like I said, I don't know if they showed this in the original cut, but Christian is brought in to basically inseminate the young girl, which would be statutory rape by most countries' standards. But over there, at least with this cult, it's part of the plan. And all the other women, or at least 10 or 12 other women of various ages and sizes, are all standing around naked, kind of singing and chanting and actually like helping the sexual intercourse. So it's a pretty insane, fucked up scene. And Danny catches a glimpse of it, so maybe that's why she's she's killing Christian, because she didn't like that he was taking part in this situation. The other thing that I got from this movie, another element of horror that I find to be horror, I don't like not having control of my mind. And people that take drugs, I mean, look, do whatever you want, but I just think it's really stupid because I'm not going to trust some goddamn pill that I don't know what's going into it, whether it's some poison or fentanyl or acid or whatever the fuck it is. Why would I trust some goddamn weird drink that some weirdo gave to me, whether that's here in the States or somewhere else? So, the whole, I don't want my mind to be altered. My mind is altered enough on its own. I don't need the help from some goddamn magic mushrooms or some smelling white out or whatever the fuck. But in this movie, Danny feels the peer pressure. She doesn't want to be the stodgy girlfriend that's ruining all the boys' fun. They all hate her already. So she does do the drugs, and that starts her off. So, I mean, the baby crying, the drugs, the not having your car, being in a foreign country, my God, all these things that I hate. So she's going through all of it. What else can I say about this movie? I mean, it does make sense now that now that I saw this movie. This movie came out a year after Hereditary. I loved Hereditary. I did think with Hereditary, the ending kind of came out of nowhere. If you saw Hereditary, it's like basically the last 2 minutes of Hereditary, we discover, oh, he's in a cult or it's a cult thing. This movie, it's more spelled out and similar, I think, to other directors who kind of have like one great idea for their whole career. And you can say that even with Tarantino, like Pulp Fiction, and then like Jackie Brown was very similar in a lot of ways to Pulp Fiction. Um, there's M. Night Shyamalan, like a lot of his movies. Like I still think he peaked with Sixth Sense, but then like some of his other ones, like the ones in the woods, it's like, oh, it's like Sixth Sense. It's that same goddamn movie. So I mean, I did have this book on directors once upon a time, and one of these directors of note had a quote that said something to the effect of, "As a director, you're making the same movie over and over again for your whole career." Which he doesn't mean that literally. If it was a he, basically saying you make the same type of movie and you just kind of master the same story. And so I would kind of be interested in what this director of note, this Ari Aster gentleman's doing now. Beau is Afraid, like I said, I saw that. But anyway, folks, I thought this was a pretty damn good movie as far as horror films go. I mean, one thing this was almost the first thing I said, but I keep forgetting. You see this poster over here of Florence Hugh, her. I mean, I've seen the poster for this Midsommar movie since it came out 5 years ago, and I thought, like, is this a horror movie that takes place at like a Shakespeare festival, like a Shakespeare summer festival gone wrong, or does this movie take place in a different time, or what is this? But I didn't recognize that this was Florence Hugh until the movie started tonight. Like, I've seen the movie poster. That's not the poster of the movie, I think. But there is a movie poster that I've seen a million times with Florence Pugh on it. I never recognized it as her. If anything, I thought it might have been, who was the actress that was just in the Stuntman, the Fall Guy movie? The lead female in that. Emily. Emily Dunn, is that her name? It's Emily Blunt. So if anything, I thought it was like Emily Blunt was in the poster of Midsommar, but it's not Emily Blunt. It's this lady. It's her, Florence Pugh. Anyway, folks, I have to give this one at least 4 stars. I think seeing it in IMAX was really impressive. Just like I saw Hereditary, I probably gave that one 4 stars. I'm probably going to give this one. I think I actually gave Hereditary like 4 and a fourth. I'll probably give this one very similar as far as horror film, as far as the look, the sound, the acting. I really didn't have any problem with this movie, except, like I said, the character never had an opportunity to leave. I think if there was a scene, like to add additional shit to this guy's movie, but if there was a moment where Danny could have escaped, but she makes a mistake and then she doesn't, or she chooses not to, I think that would have been good. But we didn't have that, and that's okay. And then I feel like, yes, the movie kind of is a lot like Hereditary, at least at the end, but it feels like in this gentleman's career, Hereditary led to this, and I think that's a good way to go. So I give it a nice applauding, and whatever this Ari Aster director writer does next, I'll be sure and watching it. If you want to see my wonderful films, not quite the budget of these things, but Many Keys, The Heartbreak Monologue, recently premiered at Fort Myers Film Festival. You can see that on One Man and a Camera Films. You can watch my movie Blood Sugar Said Ace. It's pretty goddamn good. That's on One Man and a Camera Films. The Impeccable. All types of wonderful short films. If you want to see my wonderful artwork, you go to One Artist Mike Messier. That's another YouTube channel. People tell me how great my goddamn artwork is, yet they don't subscribe to the channel. So what's with you people? One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan YouTube channel, so on and so forth. So it's officially Friday, folks. So I will be watching the Stanley Cup Game 7 tomorrow night, and then I'll be doing some other wonderful things this weekend. No, it's not Game 7. Tomorrow's Game 6. I have a feeling, though, Edmonton is looking strong, and they will be playing, I believe, at home in Edmonton. So they could be pushing to go to Game 7 back in Florida. Very exciting, folks. If you saw this movie, if you saw, especially would like to know if you saw the original cut and then you saw the director's cut, what's the difference? Because I would be curious about that. And are there things in this movie that I didn't mention that you saw that I should mention or whatever the fuck? I am trying to get through the Dune stuff. That was a real controversial couple of video reviews I did of the Dune 2. But I am working on watching the Dune series. It's just there's so many things to watch. Okay, folks, I'll talk to you later. MikeMessier.com.